Hi folks, this is Tony from Whalebones, and this is the Trip to Columbia episode 3. Leaving Bimini with Gary, we were heading for Nassau, where Gary would leave us and fly back home to New Brunswick. He had agreed to teach us some things on the way. Now Gary motored along the entire way to Nassau, never raising the sails. We didn't sail at all, which we thought where he was going to do it for us. And we learned later why, to our disgust, that the mainsail was a rotten and brittle piece of crap, and it shattered under a heavy load, and it fell completely apart. It was worthless. So was the rotten mizzenmast sail, mizzenmast. The jib was the only good sail, and we learned later that the steel deck cable stays were rotten and just pure rust. They snapped off in a bad storm, slinging around and around the mainsail, and a shower of sparks sprang everywhere in their killer wake, destroying everything they hit. And it made the mast weak and was swinging around like a wet noodle. We had to really, come up with something to strengthen the mast with, and we did it, but I'll tell you about that later. Now the wooden cross stanchions on the mast were rotted to the core, and they had aluminum corrosion so bad. The stainless ladder stairs up the mast were ripped right out of the heavy corroded mast, and the heavy bolts just pulled right out of the mast. Also, the emergency life raft we had was ripped right off the deck and flung into the sea due to badly corroded bolts. Oh, and this is good. The shortwave radio turned on, but it was inoperable. It was like you couldn't communicate. If you were in trouble, you're too bad. And the flares that we had, the gun with the flares were just all waterlogged and they didn't work. So we had no way to signal to anyone that we were having trouble. The depth gauge was bad. In fact, the entire electrical system was boogered so bad somebody could never figure it out. Gary had no idea what he was doing. He was using, normally you would have negative would be black, or it would be negative, and the positive would be red, and the green would be ground. But he had any kind of color, and they were all mixed up. And it was like impossible to figure out what he did. The entire electrical system was just buggered. The running lights wiring was corroded and inoperable. Well, it worked intermittently, but it was very unreliable. And also, Gary used some cheapo rubber gaskets to seal the fuel tanks. It was the wrong kind of material, and they were dissolved by diesel fuel. So we lost about 60 gallons of diesel fuel, which leaked out all over the floor. It was really slippery, and it was swishing all over and launching everything across the floor so badly in rough waters. We lost many gallons of fuel, carrying ripped open fuel cans, bags of ripped open flour bags, floating cereal boxes, etc., smashing against the wall. Some of the wind generator fan blades were chipped and broken, and they were so imbalanced they shook the entire ship like a vibrator, making an evil howl. Oh, and the fuel tanks were full of sand, which plugged the fuel flow in rough seas, make the engine kill over and over. When we sailed on the Atlantic side of Long Island, for example, we faced certain destruction because the only thing keeping the motor running was one of us manually squeezing the rubber priming bulb for hours and hours until your hands became so cramped we had to take turns squeezing and piloting with the 15-foot waves pushing us right into the very rocky coastline of Long Island. Oh, and this is cool. The water pump failed. We had no fresh water to drink or even cook or shower. In the galley, the cheap stapled on wooden trim pieces installed on the counters. They looked pretty, but all it was cosmetic. When you're trying to hold on to something and claw your way to keep yourself from falling into the rough seas, falling in the rough seas, on the deck, slipping around, peeled off like a tinfoil and projected you across the ship like a bullet, slamming you into the walls, getting battered and cut by glass, cans, and bruised so badly all over. And the bruises you had with the seawater spraying on us all the time, your wounds became almost like unbearably painful. It was really, you had like safety harness was digging on you, and you had all these bruises from all this crap going on. And get this, the cooling water grates, we found this out in dry dock when we couldn't get the refrigerator to work, that the cooling water grates to the power generator were covered over with a thick tar coating, making the entire engine, or the engine for the generator, it would overheat, and it constantly failed. It finally failed, and all our food began to rot. But best of all the maladies, the entire staircase leading up to the top deck was ripped right off the wall, and with me standing on them, and the staircase became a dangerous weapon. The moral of this story for you is never to trust a used car salesman with anything, especially with your life. Gary saw us coming and conducted the greatest, most epic scam in history. Of course, we got what we had coming by not having a professional assessor of ships make a thorough inspection, because this boat would certainly not be a no-buy recommendation. It was a piece of crap. And if you're considering buying a boat, consider that hearing our bad experiences will help you to not repeat our near tragic demise. So with this, it's Tony out for Whalebones. Have a good day, my friends.